What is going on, everybody? You're listening to another episode of the Vert. Here I talk to Pedro about NBA basketball, what's going on in the playoffs, as well as we touch on a little bit of Division I basketball's hope of playing this season. So sit back, relax, enjoy the podcast, and enjoy what me and Pedro have to talk about. It is a doozy. I also want to remind you that we are going to start ramping up podcast production here. We have another episode coming out this weekend again with Pedro. I think he's becoming my co-host in this thing. So as always, may the rest of your day be the best of your day. Cheers. So Daniel House. Look, he's been in there. He was in the bubble for like a month and a half. And I didn't see anything about him bringing any family or any girls like the rest of the players did.
Right.
Those NBA players, they're not your regular dude. Like they can go to any city and get whatever girl they want.
Right.
So when Daniel House was feeling kind of lonely, he's been getting these corona tests every single day. So he's got to know this corona testing lady. And she was probably feeling him. He was feeling her. I just want to know who snitched. That's my thing. Somebody had to snitch.
Yeah, somebody definitely said something. But also, supposedly there's another player involved that's not being named. And she
James
wouldn't
Harden.
name possibly. That's what a lot of people are saying.
We know James Harden is privy to the strip club life. Okay, he has his jersey retired in these Houston strip clubs. There's no way he went almost 2 months without trying to get a little something. When you're James Harden, come on, man.
I mean, that's true. It's a wild situation. But what's crazier is the Rockets weren't going to beat the Lakers regardless. But a lot of people, their excuse now is, oh, well, if they had Daniel House, can you hear me still?
Yeah.
If they had Daniel House, things would be different. But I don't,
No. And this is what's really frustrating is, as a Thunder fan, losing Game 7 the way we did, with Steven Adams not going to the rim when he had a wide open lob. Like, I was sitting on my couch and I could have saw that was going to be wide open because Houston was overplaying the three-pointer. And when that happens, if it's a one-point game, the big just has to dive to the rim. And what's going to happen is it's going to force one of the guys that are guarding the corner to slide down and help, which would either open up a corner three. And if he doesn't help, you have a lob. And that lob, it was a 2-point game. It would have tied the game.
Yeah, they had the lob. Either the lob or the dive to the rim. Two times in a row. The first time PJ Tucker was on the opposite side of Steven Adams. He was on his right hip. And Adams, all he had to do was put his hand up. Nobody was up under the rim. All he had to do was put his arm up. Alexander, throw it up to him. You put it in, tie game. And then the second time, after they called timeout, all they had to do was dive straight down the middle.
Literally.
And they didn't look for it, and he didn't even dive. So
that's been my issue with Steven Adams for the last 4 years. It's like in the playoffs, he's allergic to scoring the basketball. And most times in every series, he's been the biggest dude on the court, yet he just does not want – he'll grab an offensive rebound and not go up and dunk it. Instead, he'll kick it back out to waste the shot clock and take and have, one of OKC's guards take a terrible shot. And it's big. We're paying somebody $100 million that does not want to score the basketball. And in a series where you're 6-7 inches taller than the Houston's biggest dude, it's not. There's no excuse why you couldn't get 15 and 10.
That's very true.
PJ Tucker was on you, and it's not like Steven Adams is just tall. He's big, and every time he grabbed, there was a point in Game 7 where it was almost halftime. He had 5 points and 2 rebounds, and the guy guarding him is 6'6", 2 rebounds. And It's been the story with Steven Adams every single playoffs. He gets played off the floor. Like OKC's best lineup was a lineup that had Gallo at the 5, and Gallinari was terrible in that series.
It's true. That's true. I think they should have put Baisley in at the 4 or at the small ball 5 because Adams was, he was obviously getting rebounds. He's the biggest guy on the team, on the floor, but he was really just out there for cardio, basically.
Literally just running back and forth. Then he'd catch his little, elbow pass and he'd look around. And I'm like, nobody is scared of Adams when he catches the ball at the elbow because he doesn't even turn to shoot. Like the defense knows he's never even going to turn around to shoot. He's looking for one of those cutters that will come off of his little brush screen. It's like it's the same story every single year. And with Billy Donovan gone, I'm hoping that the next domino will be Steven Adams because in the NBA, to be a big in the NBA, it comes down to two things. You're either uber athletic or uber skilled. And Steven Adams is neither. And it's like he's big, but he's not mobile, he's sure as heck not as mobile as he used to be. And the fact of the matter that I'm already talking about used to be, and he's still in his 20s. Like, what's this guy going to be? Yes. What's he going to be at 31,
So if they get rid of Adams, where do you see him going? Where's the best place for him?
Well, you need somebody that's willing to take $26 million to get 12 and 8.
That's true.
There was the reason we gave Adams $100 million was it was his breakout year. I think it was the year right after KD left when it was just him, Oladipo, and Russ. And without Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams is kind of useless because Russ used to give him a whole bunch of easy lob finishes, dump off passes, where Russ is like force feeding him the ball, making him look good, making his offensive repertoire look better than it actually is. Outside of his post spin, he has not one other post move that he could commit to memory and do every single time down, and you can't pay a big $100 million if they don't have a full repertoire, like you can't be paying a big Embiid type money and then you get Clint Capella on a bad day type production.
It's true.
And Sam Presti, I think, really, really handicapped the Thunder going forward by being willing to pay guys like Steven Adams, and when he paid Enes Kanter, they were willing to go into the luxury tax for that team, but they weren't willing to go in the luxury tax to pay James Harden. When you look in hindsight, you're willing to overpay for Oladipo and Adams and Kanter, and you're willing to give Russ a supermax extension. You're willing to give Paul George a max extension, but you weren't willing to give James Harden like $5 more million. And it's like, I love Sam Presti. He's one of my favorite GMs just because I feel that he's one of the few GMs that somewhat recognize how to actually build a team that's sustainable. But he oftentimes ventures so far into sustainability that he ignores a window for a championship. And everybody talks about the San Antonio Spurs model, like we want to be good for 2 decades, right? And it's like, yeah, that like, of course, you want to be good for 2 decades, but not everybody's a San Antonio Spurs. Not everybody has a Greg Popovich. Some of us have a Billy Donovan or a Scott Brooks, whose offense in the playoffs just turns out to be, all right, let's give Chris Paul the ball here and see what he can do. And that's not going to move the needle for your team in the playoffs. To be a San Antonio Spurs, you have to have a Hall of Fame coach. And if you don't have a Hall of Fame coach, at that point, what you're actually doing is you're building a team that, yes, can sustain regular season success, but in the playoffs, they're not gonna push it to the second round or even the conference finals. And what happens is teams get so stuck in this mode of, well, we have all these draft picks, we have all these assets, and teams never want to cash in those assets for a chance at a championship because they're like, well, we're trying to be good for a decade. And it's like, yes, I understand that. You have to plan for now and the future, though. And championship windows are oftentimes smaller than they appear. Like if you would have asked me back when I was 11 about the Thunder, I would have said, oh, we're gonna be winning championships for the next decade. In reality, after 2015, that window was closed, you know? And even still, Kevin Durant, the year before his last season in Oklahoma City, he was injured, you know? And then the year before that, Russ was injured. And so really their last opportunity at a championship came in 2014. The 2016 conference finals thing, I think we just got hot in the playoffs, but in reality, nobody was even expecting us to beat the Spurs that year. And so it's like these championship windows are oftentimes 2 to 3 years where it's like you can cash in now when the contracts line up, when the luxury tax lines up, where you're not hard capped, where you're not overpaying for underproduction. And teams miss it in the name of sustainability and holding on to these assets that wind up being like pick 20 in the 2027 draft. And it's like, maybe I'd be a short-sighted GM, you know, maybe I'd be somebody that wouldn't always make the best move. But in my mind, I'm always trying to win now. And yes, you want to give guys opportunities to develop and you want to give your young guys up, but don't they get those opportunities? Don't they become better players by getting playoff reps? And so it's like, if you're a GM, you have these assets? Yes. Why aren't you making good moves to get the next disgruntled superstar? Like, NBA teams overvalue these draft picks like they're a gold mine, and more times than not, they end up drafting Mario Hezonja. Like, you know, like the number 4 pick always looks better on paper than it actually is. But NBA teams overvalue these picks because they like the idea of picking their guy versus saying, like, oh, Donovan Mitchell's unhappy. Hey, Utah, we'll give you 3 picks and, you know, 2 players for Donovan Mitchell. Because what Donovan Mitchell does is he extends your championship window, you know? And small market teams, they fall into the trap of, we want to be good for a decade. And I'm like, but don't sacrifice the chance at a championship to be good for 10 years and have nothing to show for it.
True. That's true, man. It's like you said, though, there's a lot of that going on. Teams often do that, especially in the small markets. So it's tough, though, man. It's tough to win a championship. It's rare when you see – it's rare to see, like, a handful of teams, you know, kind of like this year, able to compete for the title. Like, we knew the Bucks, obviously, and the LA teams. That's 3 right there. And also another contender out of the East. But that's always rare, especially – you know, kind of when Golden State was coming up with their dynasty. It was always Golden State and Cleveland, only 2 teams, maybe 1 extra one, you know.
Right.
So, but I think a lot of organizations, man, they try to just focus on developing the younger guys, and it's not really so much about winning.
Yeah. So, nobody really talks about the amount of times where, you know, a coach gets fired because they don't want to play a guy, but the GM is like not begging, but forcing him to play a guy that might not be that good or might not be ready for it just because the GM picked him with the 5th overall pick. And it's because the GM's career is linked to that 5th overall pick, especially if, you know, say the GM lobbies that pick and like, say the GM lobbies that pick and says, like, I'll bet my career on this guy being a star. You think that he's then going to allow the coach to not play that guy, you know? And it's like, especially if the owner is not completely behind the pick either, then the GM's feeling the pressure from the owner, and then the GM puts that pressure on the coach to play this guy that might not be that good. And so then coaches get a bad rep, and they're like, oh, why is the coach playing this guy? And it's like, I have to play this guy because the GM said my job depends on it. But who's the first guy they're going to fire when that team isn't good because of the terrible pick they made? The coach. You know? And it's like, no, like a lot of the problems that happen with these NBA teams come down to ownership and the GM. I think a lot of these basketball coaches are just the scapegoats. Like they're just the scapegoats because to be an NBA coach, you not only have to be a guru when it comes to X's and O's, but you have to be able to manage people. And I don't think a lot of people understand how hard that job is, you know, and with guys like, for instance, like when Kenny Atkinson got fired in Brooklyn, you know, that guy, he's a terrific head coach. But he got fired because he didn't want to play DeAndre Jordan because Jared Allen's clearly better because he does what DJ does and he's younger.
True.
But KD and Kyrie didn't like that, so they made sure they got him out of there. Now he might be this next up-and-coming season. He might not be with a job. He might not have a job because of the fact that KD and Kyrie wanted him out of there. And KD and Kyrie make that team an instant contender, but then they're going to bring on a first-year head coach with no experience. Especially with guys that have that experience sitting without coaching contracts. And that's the thing that confuses me the most is I understand Steve Nash had a relationship with KD and Kyrie and he's close with them and that matters. But it just goes to show how much of the NBA is a relationship driven business where when push comes to shove, they'll players love you until you actually try to coach them. That's my belief. The NBA players love you until you actually try to coach them.
That's true. That is true. And it's not true for everyone, but a lot of them, yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. But they're making so much money. They're like, hell, I'm making $60 million. I'm making more than you. How you gonna tell me to do it this way? I'm making so much money, So
especially if it's a coach that wasn't a great player.
Right.
Then all of a sudden it's what do you know about the game? Like I'm better than you.
Right. That makes it worse.
It's really an interesting thing though. Stephen A. Smith was talking about like how the Steve Nash hiring was an example of like white privilege. And I understood where he was coming from though when you think about like his position where he says not Steve Nash directly is an example of white privilege, but he was talking about how the white coaches tend to get the jobs that everybody would die for, like Steve Kerr getting Golden State, Steve Nash getting Brooklyn. Heck, I feel like I could coach Brooklyn, man. Like learn a couple offensive sets and then tell KD and Kyrie to do their thing.
Right.
Because basketball's a field game. And the place where I would struggle if I coached the Brooklyn Nets would be coming up with inbounds plays. I feel like that I would get exposed there. Sideline outs. And I'm like, all right, guys. But, I got where Stephen A. was coming from. And I think a lot of people misconstrued where he was coming from. I think people thought he was directly saying, oh, like Steve Nash shouldn't have got the job. And, it's hard to argue that he shouldn't have because he did have a relationship with those guys. I think it highlights a different issue in how, black coaches tend to struggle in cultivating relationships with ownerships and management. Because when you hear about the stories about what happened to Mark Jackson and how they fired him, not because he was a bad coach, but because he basically ostracized management and he wanted to do it his way. And so I wonder, maybe in those management circles, they talk about black coaches that way, that, oh, he's hard-headed, he won't do what you tell him to do, stuff like that. And I think maybe that's what Stephen A. was trying to get at,
That's true. And there's also Stephen A., I think he touched on it too, where there's a different narrative with black coaches and white coaches. Like the white coaches get the, oh, well, just a bad coach, we'll try another one.
Mm-hmm.
And, the black coaches don't get so many chances.
Exactly. I mean,
to mess up,
Think about Fizdale. He got that Memphis run, then he got a year and a half in New York, and they're like, we're done.
Right.
And you get mad at Fizdale for giving him a roster whose best player was whose two best players were Julius Randle and Marcus Morris, and you're asking him to go win you basketball games. I mean, you're starting Frank Ntilikina, and you're asking him to go win you basketball games. It makes no sense. Like that's the thing that doesn't. Brett Brown got like almost a decade in Philadelphia, and he won a ton of games, and all he did was disappoint when Ben Simmons and Embiid got there. Yet he kept getting chance after chance after chance after chance. I have not seen a black coach get to see through a rebuild in the NBA.
No.
And that's where I think if Stephen A. would have framed the point that way, that's where I think more people would have listened, because I think he just got so emotional that he misspoke his own idea. But it's like what black coach have you seen last throughout a rebuild the way Brett Brown lasted in Philadelphia, or the way Billy Donovan, lasted in OKC with year after year of disappointment? If a black coach loses in the first round 2 years in a row, he's done.
Yeah. True.
And when it's one like Nate McMillan getting fired in Indiana, that's one, his entire roster was hurt all year. They make the playoffs, and in the playoffs they have an Oladipo coming back from injury. They had Brogdon was in and out of the lineup. They didn't have Jeremy Lamb, and they played a Heat team that's now in the conference finals. And then they fired him for making the playoffs with a roster whose most reliable offensive weapon was TJ Warren all year. If anything, he did a fine job in coaching a team that didn't have its best player for 3/4 of the season. And that's the stuff that I can't get over. It's I don't see the grounds in firing him, because they're like, oh, well, he lost in the first round. And it's he played LeBron for 2 seasons in a row. You lose to the team that makes the finals. So, and he forced LeBron to a game 7 one of those years. And it was one shot away from it being Indiana in the second round. And you fire that guy, but then Brett Brown can just be in Philadelphia for forever. And that's the part where I'm confused, I guess. And I think that's the part where Stephen A. Smith has so much validity in what he said, in that black coaches' leashes are so much short. And I'd like to see a side-by-side comparison of
how long was Dwayne Casey in Toronto?
At the average tenure of a black head coach in the NBA compared to a white one? That's a great question. Shoot. I know them firing Dwayne Casey, I can't even be mad, because Nick Nurse is amazing, but
he is. But was it Nurse or was it Kawhi?
I mean, this is what I'm saying. Did you watch Game 7 yesterday?
I watched some of it.
So there was, once Kyle Lowry fouled out, it became Fred VanVleet just jacking terrible shots, right? And so it was after the Marcus Smart block on Norman Powell, and they come down. I think the Raptors were down 3, and Nick Nurse, it was out of a timeout, I want to say, too. And the play that they draw up was Fred VanVleet dribbling the ball for 20 seconds and then taking a horrible, contested fall-away 3. Yeah. And Nick Nurse is an amazing coach, but you got to come up with something better for that possession, with your season on the line too.
But they were also struggling to find another score off the bounce. Obviously it was him and Lowry, and OG was scoring too. Powell was stepping up, but the one they were really looking for was Pascal.
And Dwayne Casey was in Toronto since 2011-12.
Okay, yeah, he was there for a grip, and they were winning, but they kept losing to LeBron.
If it wasn't for, I don't know, I think if Casey had Kawhi, they still win the title regardless.
Okay, I think so too.
I think that if Casey had Kawhi, they win the title. I feel it was more DeMar DeRozan being unable to step up and play better in the playoffs.
Yeah,
and
I think too.
DeMar DeRozan kind of hurt Kyle Lowry's playoff resume, because people actually think Kyle Lowry was a loser before Kawhi got there. And it's he was a guy that competed in every single game he played in. Yes, he had been notoriously bad in game 1s of the playoffs, but after that he had been a good player. And, I can say that, Kyle Lowry's performance in game 6, and he didn't shoot the ball well in game 7, but just the effort that he played with was one of the things. But again, how do you judge a coach? Do you judge them on them being better than you initially expected? Because could this season have just been because of Kyle Lowry's leadership, or was it Nurse being a great head coach?
I think you can say it's a little bit of both.
You think so?
I think it's a little bit of both because he did coach them to some really big wins. The way they were playing defensively was amazing. Like his schemes, they throw at certain teams and certain players.
How he'd mix in the box and one, then go to a 2-3, then a matchup man. Like that level of discipline on the defensive end from his players to know like what to be in immediately.
Like they came back. They had a game. They were down damn near 30, 25, something like that against Dallas. And they ran a damn 2-2-1, came back and won the game. Like a 1-2-2, 2-2-1. It was one of the two, and they came back and won.
I'm not, and this is not to disparage him as a coach at all. I think that him and Kyle Lowry really do have something special in terms of a player to coach on the floor and what Kyle Lowry's seeing and on the sideline, what Coach Nurse is seeing. Like there was a moment in Game 7 where, Kyle Lowry was screaming at Nurse because I think he called a timeout.
Yeah. And all you have to do is throw the ball in. Clock runs out.
Right. Or was that Game 6? I think that was Game 6.
That was Game 6.
Kyle Lowry yelling at Nurse and them not like getting in each other's face about it really showed the type of relationship that they have, because it's like yeah, Nurse knows that that was just dumb. Like that you just get the ball and game's over.
Right.
Both of them just wanted to win, and I think that's why I can appreciate Kyle Lowry the player. I think he's a Hall of Famer, and why I can appreciate Nurse. But I do still think that Dwayne Casey wins with Kawhi. I will hold that.
I think so too. And I love Kyle Lowry. Like you said, he plays hard. He's a winner. He's crafty, high IQ. And I just don't like the flopping. The flopping kills me.
Really?
I hate seeing that. Like, a lot of guys flop, but like his are like outrageous.
Like, I will. My favorite are when he like rakes a guy across the arm and does the "I didn't touch him" look.
Yeah, man. So, but no, they're a great team though. They had a really good season. I think if Pascal Siakam is Pascal Siakam of the regular season, I think they win that series in 7.
What happened to him? Like he couldn't do anything.
He and Giannis encountered the same exact problems.
You think so?
Yes, they were great. And they're similar players too. You got to think about it. They were great in the regular season. They put up numbers. But once you get to the playoffs, like I said earlier, it's different. If you're not that great of a shooter, it's different for you. It's the playoffs. Games are tighter. Every shot matters. The schemes are different.
Mm-hmm.
In the regular season, they're just kind of, oh, yeah, okay, well, just let them go. It is different now. And he was just struggling. He's still trying to get adjusted. His game's still a little raw, him and Giannis both. And they're really good in transition. But like I said, it's the playoffs. It's different. You're not getting to the rim, especially in transition, as easily as before, especially if that's your game.
That's a great transition, because I did want to touch on Giannis. But the similarities in Pascal and Giannis's game, now that like I'm sitting here thinking about it, it's that both of them are guys that'll hit the defensive glass, and then they'll try to run and dunk the ball. like that's a lot of their games. And Pascal Siakam, he loves that spin move in transition to get around guys and finish with the right or left hand. But in the half court, he's one of those athletic forwards that in the half court he can't shoot it that well and doesn't have a post move that he commits to memory that says I can go to this anytime. And I think the biggest leap that you see for forwards that don't have a jump shot or when they can hit that post fadeaway turnaround, like that is where like that's the next progression for a lot of those guys. Is yes, they might not ever be a great 3-point shooter, but if they can hit that post turnaround, and that because that post turnaround opens up so many aspects of the game, because then you have the counter where say they shut down the turnaround, you can spin back around right hand or left hand finish.
That's true. And I think Pascal has somewhat of a post game, but like you said, everybody knows he likes the spin move and he doesn't really have anything else out of that. But if he can hit that fadeaway or face up and hit it, hit that short jumper, then everything's cool. Same for Giannis. But neither of them really have that, as far as the post-up game.
And, I have grace for Pascal Siakam. Giannis is where I draw the line. Giannis he's now reached Embiid tier of frustration for me. Because the guy's immensely talented. Obviously, he has all the tools to be this generation's best player after LeBron. But when he came in the league, he was shooting 32 or 33% from three. And when he came in the league, his jump shot looked better. When he came in the league, his jump shot was smoother. When he came in the league, it was a smooth one motion jump shot. It didn't have a hitch in it. It didn't have this awkward release point where he releases it while he's still almost on the ground. How has that gotten worse?
I don't know, man. And that's what I've seen a lot of people on like Twitter talking about that. And, a lot of people say it's, him getting stronger, the weightlifting. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that plays a part because obviously as you get stronger, as far as lifting and everything, your shot changes. Your touch, your form is going to change. So I don't completely throw it all on that. I mean, they have shooting coaches, so I think somebody might have tweaked it a little bit more than it should have been tweaked as he was getting stronger. That's my thing. Because I've seen the film. I like Coach Nick for B-Ball Breakdown. So I watch a lot of his stuff, and he has a video on that. And he was just he was showing the clips from his first few years and how fluid it was. But as years went on, it started changing little by little. Percentages started.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yes. So I don't know, man. It's really weird.
And the next thing that I have that really frustrates me with Giannis, how is it that you are going to be the MVP of the NBA, more likely than not? I really doubt that LeBron won it. That's just my hunch. The media will try to paint this narrative that everybody voted for LeBron until it doesn't happen. Okay.
Right.
But how are you arguably going to be the MVP of this season? And yes, you got hurt in the series, but to be on the verge of getting swept and your team playing better, far better without you in Game 4 was one of the most telling things to me. Because yes, he started out Game 4 dominating, but everything was still stagnant. It was 4 guys watching Giannis. Everybody was ball watching, and Miami could set up a defense that had 3 guys to the ball anytime Giannis took one dribble towards the paint. And so you get hurt, and it looked bad, and I'm sure like those types of sprains take a while to heal, and I hope he gets better just because, I love watching him play in the regular season. But why did it take you getting hurt for the other guys to start moving when you didn't have the ball? Why did the offense look better being ran through Chris Middleton? And it's because Chris Middleton is a legit shot creator. He can get to his spots and he can get his shots off. Now, will they go in? That's a question for another day, but at least he gets there. But with Giannis, I feel like if he just tries to bulldoze and running back his way into the paint, and then he'll throw up a layup, either hope to get fouled, and he'll maybe make the free throw. But it's like Giannis is not a forward in my mind. He's a center who can handle the ball a little bit, can pass a little bit. In my mind, he is a 5, and I don't understand how when push came to shove, when games were on the line, he turned into a secondary player. You were looking for Chris Middleton and Eric Bledsoe to make plays for you. And when you're the best player, and the thing is, you can tell in those moments, Giannis doesn't want the ball because he doesn't know what to do because he can't shoot.
Yeah, you see him setting a lot of screens.
And he does not want and the thing is, if you're going to set a screen, at least dive hard to the rim, but he won't even dive hard to the rim sometimes. Because in those moments, I don't think he's built for those moments right now. I really don't. Like, I don't think his offensive game is built for those moments where the Bucks are down by 1 and they need a score. I don't think he has a shot that he could go to that he knows is going in more times than not. For Kawhi Leonard, we see it with the Clippers. When they're down 1, games on the line, he'll go to that baseline fadeaway every time. And the thing is, I haven't ever seen him miss. Like when he needs that shot, it'll go in every time. You know, like we know LeBron has the post fadeaway. What he did to Toronto in 2018 with that that move single-handedly. You know, like all these star players have this one move that they know that if we need a score, I can get to that spot and I can make that shot. You know, Damian Lillard, it's the pull-up three-pointer. He knows coming off the screen, he can get that off every single time. CJ McCollum, it's a mid-range step back, you know, on the wings. But what's Giannis's shot where he can go, we need a score right now, give me the ball and get out of the way? Because bulldozing the paint doesn't work. It does not work.
It's tough, man. But I mean, I don't know what he's going to do this offseason. He's talked about, he said he was going to stay, and now he's unfollowed all the guys.
Is that real? Was that like a legit story?
He unfollowed all of his teammates, and he had a meeting with the Bucks today about like the future. So I don't know. I don't know what came out of the meeting or anything like that. It's just going to be interesting to see how things play out.
If Giannis goes to Golden State, I'm rioting. Okay,
that's cheating.
Like
he's a super, ultra super whatever. Draymond Green,
and it'd be like, but what package could the Warriors even put together to?
Do you trade Draymond?
Man, so Draymond can put triple singles up in Milwaukee.
I don't know. I know, but if he's there, it opens up the game a little bit more for him. Because even if he's still not that great of a shooter, you can't help off and wall up like Miami did against him. You know, you can't do. Who you gonna do that off of? You gonna come off Clay? You gonna come off Steph?
Hey, they're coming off of Andrew Wiggins.
I mean, but he's still, you know,
he's serviceable at least.
Yeah,
he's not like Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe. Like, can you believe they paid him like $70 million? Like, I get he was an all NBA level defender, but they picked Bledsoe over Brogdon last summer.
And that was very confusing to me.
Like, because Brogdon was a restricted free agent. All you had to do was match the offer sheet that Indiana had.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And you would have came back.
Exactly. If you match the offer sheet, then you also have his bird rights so that you can go over the salary cap to re-sign him. And they just let him walk for nothing.
Literally.
A restricted free agent walks for, and it's because that Milwaukee organization is cheap. That's what you get for being in Milwaukee, man.
Man.
You know, I complain about the Thunder being cheap, but what did Milwaukee need in the playoffs? They needed a guard that could penetrate, create shots, hit the outside jumper, and pass. What can Brogdon do? All of that. What could Bledsoe do? He could penetrate 50-50 on the layups, and if he's shooting, that's a turnover. Like, he was airballing threes. Like, you're an NBA player wide open and you airball?
This is his second straight playoffs where he's been kind of subpar.
And he's good in the regular season. Like, he's a good starting point guard in the regular season. But that's the common theme with a lot of those guys on the Bucks. They're good in the regular season, but like you said, when the game slows down, I mean, Chris Middleton had that otherworldly game where he turned into Bucks Ray Allen for a second. But, you know, Middleton is a guy where it's like you're not surprised if he gives you 30 and you're not surprised if he gives you 12. And so, like, if that's your second fiddle and you expect a finals appearance, like looking at the roster, I think a lot of us basketball fans just bought into the Giannis hype. But when you actually look at the roster, they're giving minutes to Marvin Williams and Pat Connaughton and a 95-year-old Kyle Korver. And you're like, I mean, Brook Lopez, you're relying on Brook Lopez to be your third guy?
Yeah.
And it's like Brook Lopez is a good NBA player, but if Brook Lopez is my third guy, I'm not winning.
I mean, it makes it tough for you.
And so it's that Bucks team. If Giannis leaves, I don't think he could go to Miami because that'd be a KD type move.
Very KD.
But if he goes to Golden State, like all these like columnists and writers are trying to push,
I'll be pissed.
The rich only get richer. Like how does Stephen Clay get hurt for 1 year and they come back better? Like
right. I'd be so pissed.
And so we'll see. But the Lakers-Rockets game wrapped up 10, 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
What is your reaction from this series?
I mean, I expected that 4 or 5 games. The Rockets, man, the way they play it's predictable. It's very predictable because they don't have any shot creators outside of Harden and Westbrook and Eric Gordon, But like you drive, and the Lakers, all they were doing were forcing them to drive, and they were helping, but they could have had they passed up. They would pass up layups for threes, but the Lakers keep running them off the line, so they're getting to the free throw line, elbow paint, and they're not shooting any floaters. They're not shooting any mid-range pull-ups because they can't. And one, they can't, and two, they don't.
Right.
So it makes you predictable. Okay, well, I know, hell, if you ain't gonna shoot a three, I know you're gonna try to go to the rim because you ain't gonna shoot the pull-up. So I can sag off of you and just have help waiting in the paint for you. Just wall up.
Right,
and
right.
That's what the Lakers were doing, and they played right into their hands. So it made it tough, man. And that's another thing. Regular season. Regular season's a whole different story.
The gap between the regular season and the postseason now is so shocking. It really shows that a lot of these NBA teams really don't be trying for once they secure a playoff spot, they're cool. And like it just showcases a gap. And that's one of the things that I noted about Houston is everybody was gushing about their super small ball. But the fact is, yes, we like to say, oh, small ball and more threes, like this is analytical basketball now. But at the end of the day, the game is still won in forcing turnovers and owning the glass. And those are two things where not having a big on the floor make that significantly harder.
Yeah.
Because what happened in the Lakers-Rocket series was AD, since he was guarding Westbrook, could help off of everything. So on any drive, AD's there. And it's either a bad shot or, they're trying to pass out of a shot, turnover. Versus when LeBron would drive, you're asking PJ Tucker, Jeff Green, when Daniel House was still able to play, you're asking him to, do the work of what a guy the size of AD does really well. And I think the Rockets kind of leaned too far in to the analytics and stopped using common sense. They allowed the numbers to tell them what to do versus saying, like, what actually makes sense here.
Yeah, that's very true. So I don't know, man. I think there's going to be some changes made in that organization as well.
You think Daryl Morey's gone?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they'll get rid of him.
What about Tony?
He's gone. He's gone. Kind of like we talked about. Like the GMs don't get, they're not getting cut. It's always the coach, but deservedly so in this case.
I mean, think how when the Rockets had a chance in, what was that, 2017, where Chris Paul got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2018 was what, when was that KD going down?
KD went
That was
out.
2019.
Yes.
That was 2019.
Was it? Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because 2017 was when the Warriors steamrolled everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
2018 was when Chris Paul got hurt, Iggy was hurt.
Yeah.
And then it was a game 7 and the Rockets missed like 20 straight threes.
Yeah.
And they didn't try anything different.
Nope.
I mean, think about it. If you're missing those threes, why aren't you trying to get mid-range jump shots, layups, something to just break the momentum swing?
They just keep shooting them. We'll shoot 50, 60 threes. Hell, some of them got to go in. And that's the philosophy.
And look where it's got them. Second round and out every single time. And then 2019, to me, that's the most egregious because that was that was when KD goes out. And it was James Harden's moment to say, like, I'm going to prove I'm a top 20 guard of all time in this moment by literally snatching victory from this team. Like, KD's out, Steph sucks in the first half, and Harden was good all game. But what happened is Steph had that amazing third quarter, and it became Steph's moment over Harden's moment when the stage was set for Harden. And he couldn't move the needle for Houston.
Right.
And that's a thing that I've noticed in Harden's career. He has this weird playoff resume where he has these, big point totals, but then they come in these blowout closeout game losses. And so it's like, I question, like, what's Harden's impact when it's a win or go home game? And Game 7 against Oklahoma City, that block saved his legacy because he played terrible, absolutely terrible in that game. And if Lou Dort just pump fake sidesteps and takes that three instead, like what? How are we talking about Harden at this point? And then in this Lakers series, after Game 1, Harden was getting his points, but it wasn't moving the needle for Houston.
Like tonight, he had 29 or 30 plus, and they lost by how much? How much they lose by?
What, like 20?
Yeah, 23, something like that. 33. I don't know. My math isn't the best, but they lost by a lot.
Right, and so, like, Harden, it's again showing the gap between the regular season and the postseason, where like Harden's averaging 36 in the regular season, Houston can't lose, and then when things slow down, like that 3-pointer or layup philosophy kind of goes out the window, and you need guys that can create mid-range jump shots, and that's literally why Kawhi is the best playoff player in today's NBA, because he can get any mid-range jump shot he wants.
Mm-hmm. That's true, and like Harden too, like himself, and I think it's him, and I think it's also D'Antoni, and Morey obviously plays a role too. But like I read a quote where somebody asked, like, why doesn't Harden like move when he passes the ball? Like, why does he just stand there? Mm-hmm. And he was, hell, he'll get tired. That'll tire him out. Like, what the put on the like? Are you serious, dude? Like,
right?
He doesn't post up. He used to post. He used to cut. He used to score out of the mid range. Ain't none of that now.
It confuses me because when he first got to Houston, that's what was so appealing to his game. Like, he could do a little bit of everything, and he could pass. And then all of a sudden, now it's just Harden dribbles for 20 seconds and then runs a pick and roll or takes a 30-foot three or does his, triple step back. It's like teams have figured that out too. I remember when he first added that to his repertoire, everybody's like, how do you stop this move? And then people figured out you just sit on his shooting hand and he can't get it up.
Right.
And so Harden, he's at this weird point for me where I don't know how to rank him as a playoff player anymore. Like
tough.
Like coming in, like now the tiers for me are kind of set. Like Jimmy Butler is a great playoff player. Is he a tier 1 superstar? No, but he just has that dog in him that a lot of these guys like Giannis, he gives the illusion that he has that dog in him, but his play doesn't back it up. And for me, that kind of went out the window when after Jimmy cooked them in game 1, he doesn't step up and say, I'm guarding him the rest of the series.
I'll switch on to him or anything, or say, hey, coach, let me guard him. Hell, if he could cook me, cook me.
But this is the thing is like, that made me think of when LeBron was playing the Bulls and Derrick Rose cooked them in game 1, and then LeBron tells Spoelstra, I got Rose. And he took him out of that series.
He did. He did the same thing with Tony Parker.
Like, think about that. And it's like with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, you knew LeBron was going to be guarding the player that's cooking them that night. And with Giannis, for him to say, I'm just going to do whatever the coach does, I feel like he was just trying to scapegoat Bud.
Yeah, that was a cop-out.
Him being scared of that moment. You know, like, for me, like, I have too much pride to just sit back and watch a guy cook my team like that. If I were as talented as Giannis in the NBA, like, for me, I have too much pride for that. Where I'd say, like, at least let me try, you know? Like, if I get cooked, I get cooked, and you can blame me. But to say I just do whatever the coach told me, that rubbed me the wrong way, because it's like, you can't claim to have that dog in you. And when he did the whole crowning himself thing, and
that pissed me off.
Like to crown yourself and then to not even guard the opposing team's best player until game 3.
Man.
Like, that's what I didn't understand. He spent all season crowning himself. And then he just was like, I don't want to guard the opposing team's best player. I do whatever it tells me to do.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out, man. It's going to be a wild off season.
I wonder, because this free agency class isn't as good as 2021's is going to be.
2021's going to be really good.
Man, I wonder what's going to happen with the draft and stuff.
They're talking about pushing it back from next month to November, like mid-November.
Feel bad for like those college kids though.
They're probably like, damn, what are we waiting on?
Right. And so I can't imagine like just sitting at home like, yeah, I'm supposed to get drafted. I hope the team still like me.
Right. No, so and it's gonna be weird because once you get there, hell, you got a month before you start playing.
Right. I wonder I think they might push the start of the season to like mid-January.
I don't think they'll push it back that far. Maybe early January.
Like a New Year's type season opener?
Yeah, probably. Because they're talking about no earlier than Christmas. And I don't know though.
We'll see. How are things at school? How's the D1 basketball player life treating you?
It's good. It's been kind of weird because of COVID. Like we've encountered problems with COVID 3 times already, and I've had to quarantine twice. And
those are 28 days of your life you'll never get back.
No, I won't. Like I just got off of the last one, and we're supposed to start back up Monday or Tuesday. So it's outside of that, everything's good though. The classes they're kind of frustrating because they're online. They're kind of high flex, so half and half, but it's whatever. It's whatever. It makes it harder for me to focus because it's online. So like I wasn't paying much attention before, and now it's worse for me. So, but I'm getting through it like everybody else.
How have you heard any word from how the season might play out from the NCAA or your conference?
The NCAA is supposed to make a decision Wednesday on when the practice hours change and when teams can start playing. And but once they announce like the date, like November or whatever, then the conferences have to say, okay, hey y'all, you can start playing whenever, like on this date. So they're going to give the official date, and then the conferences have to go from there on their own. So,
okay.
I don't know what it's going to look like because our schedule, if it starts at the 25th of November, we're missing like 6 games, 5 games, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Would you still have a lot, barring there's no cancellations or postponements, but you
got to think that they're learning from college football though. Like having college football on today was spectacular. It started to feel like fall for me, just a Saturday with college football on in the background.
Right.
But I really do wonder how they're going to do some of this indoor sports stuff, because college football has the nice ability to be outdoors where people can social distance and do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the virus spreads faster indoors. So
yeah, it's gonna be different, obviously. I don't know, man. It's gonna be tough. There's a lot of talk about having bubbles in this place and that place.
Have you heard anything from your school directly?
As far as us, as of right now, no, I haven't heard anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I know it's going to be tough, though, to put college guys in a bubble for X amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it as, I don't know if we've talked about this before.
Yep.
As pros, you're getting paid to go and do that.
To be there.
Yeah. College students, you feel me? Like, you're not getting no bread, and you gotta take classes, and you're away from your natural habitat, where
right.
you use, and you got to be in this secluded place, for a number of time, and some guys it won't be a problem, and some guys it will. Everybody's different, so
right.
It'll be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out. So I don't know.
Definitely. Well, it's been good to have you back. We'll probably try to do this again next week.
For sure, man. Just let me know. I'm free whenever, usually.
All right, man. It's been real. Thank you.
For sure. Appreciate you, Ian.
Make sure to subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts to The Vert. It is just produced by me, myself, and I love it. It's my favorite thing in the entire world. As always, though, may the rest of your day be the best of your day. Make sure to follow me on social medias. Those will be linked in the podcast description. Cheers.